Hey there guys, this is Obsidian Chill. Got another video for you today. Starting to feel like multiverse with all these daily uploads here, but DC keeps giving us the content preview, so I gotta bring it to you guys here. So we found, I didn't really touch base on all the Twitter releases in terms of showing all the different Wonderverse Wonder Womans. I know some other people covered that. It wasn't really interesting to me because, for one, I don't know any of the comic book background stories to it, so it's nothing that I can really address to you guys on it, because I'd be basically talking out of my ass about it. But they did announce, along with the artifacts on test server, that I will continue to update. So any changes that happen to those artifacts, I will 100% bring to you. And if you're looking for any more of the DLC information, definitely subscribe, because there's no one that's going to cover more of a preview into the DLC that I will. 100% I'll have every little bit covered on the test server for you guys. So they released the Dev Diary Wonderverse Open World. So it's basically a little bit of a preview into what we can expect in August. They haven't said when it's going to go on test server. Usually it's about 2 weeks before. And then we know that it's going to release sometime in August. We don't know if it's going to be in the beginning, in the middle, most likely not the end. So we kind of get a rough idea of what to expect here. And it is a lot different than what we would expect from a typical DLC. So we can kind of cover here something different, starting with the story and characters. This episode just demands to be massive. Multiverse are colliding, the source wall is cracked. Not one but 5 Wonder Women are on the job. The gods are desperate. So massive is what MMOs are all about, so we took this opportunity to deliver just with that a new approach to the open world and episode overall. So the first kind of feedback there, because we all know that I can't post my feedback on the forums, so I gotta kind of stick to it on YouTube here. But my first feedback with that, or my first concern, is the recent track record with that. So when I hear the word or the term massive, and then I kind of relate that to the fact that PC players still regularly disconnect from Phoenix Canon, regular, and elite. I was in there the other day, and 5 PS players disconnected as soon as we got in there, and that's been prevalent since the very beginning of that DLC. We all know what happens with the Birds of Prey release. That was the laggiest DLC that we've had in almost 10 years. And then the next DLC they release, they're hyping up how massively open world based it is. So that's my first concern. I hope they've got whatever issues that were plaguing Birds of Prey at the beginning are fixed with this one, because that's the last thing we need, is to have some giant open world with new open world bosses, with an emphasis on the open world itself, and then to be a complete lag fest. So we certainly can't have that. So that'd be my first feedback, is I hope to God they've learned from their mistakes from the last 2 DLCs in a row. So I hope it's not like a 3 strikes and you're out kind of rule. But we'll touch on the raid-like open world. So more to do means more content, open world Themyscira. We've created new complex-like raid-like bosses, but also very unlike bounties or previous bonus bosses. These boss fights will feature even more interesting mechanics, crucial additions to the episode story, and their own rewards. So what I'm getting from that is that when we typically address a bounty, say it's like MetaHuman or Calculator Bot, a bounty that's for 8 marks, or a weekly bounty, or even the one in Thanagar, I forget his name, but the Thanagar one. I mean, you can realistically kill that with 4 people. I mean, there's been no bounty that's required 8 or 9 people or 30 people in a very long time. You can kill it with 4. So my guess is that they're going to properly either scale the health or scale the damage, so that you have to have healers in your group. You can't just solo it. You need multiple tanks maybe. So I mean, I like that aspect, because the last thing I want is just 50 people gathered up, and just the boss is dead in 30 seconds, and then basically they run back to the cog, reset it, go back. So that's not an enjoyable experience. If you've ever been star farming groups, is basically, you sit there, kill star after 30 seconds, do it again, and then 100 times for the counter feed or whatever. So the one thing they did add here, world boss rewards. So more content means more rewards, with one fundamental difference: no loot locks. So What it is that the open world bosses, specifically a part of this DLC, will not have loot locks. You can run them as many times as you want. They also mentioned it's going to be separate currency. So there's going to be obviously the raid current, like the DLC currency where we get our gear from and all those other rewards. But there's going to be some sort of separate currency for open world that you'll be able to get separate rewards from. But then at least there's no loot locks on those rewards. So it's something that you can always do. So if you run all your dailies, run all your weeklies, and you got nothing to do, and you just want to log off, and the world's kind of stale, or the DLC becomes stale, well, now there's no loot locks on these, you can keep running them. So that's what my guess is from that, is that they're trying to reduce how stale a DLC is from people just running everything and being loot locked and not wanting to run anything, so at least they can always get rewards no matter what time. So adding these new rewards with loot locks is very important to our new approach to open world, with much of the game eventually running up and waiting on loot locks to reset. Like I just talked about, we wanted to make sure you could always have more to do if that's what you want. So it's certainly going to be an interesting experience. We'll see what it is. I haven't played other MMOs, but I've watched like streams and YouTube videos, so I know the concept of what they're kind of approaching for, like, you know, a massive raid like boss. And that's certainly interesting. I don't want a boss that's, like I said, dead in 30 seconds, that's uninteresting. I want something that actually you need to require teamwork to do, so like a raid group, one that's going to need healers, is one going to need tanks. So I think that'll be an interesting concept, and especially with no loot locks. It doesn't matter. If you don't run it that day, you can do it the next day, or you know, regardless. So we'll see how that affects in terms of like feats and stuff like that. So this is kind of just like a brief preview of it. But I mean, that's my only concern. Like, I don't mind the concept, but my only concern is with the lag. So the other side note that we did learn, not sure if it was posted on what Maps replies. I think it was. Okay, yeah. So the next DLC, the one kind of surprising release. So it's going to have a solo, it's going to have an alert, it's going to have weeklies, it's going to have dailies, but it's also going to have one raid. So it's not going to be 2 raids, just one. So Mep said, we've doubled down on making the one raid fantastic. That's an interesting phrase. And have worked to provide these new raid-like experiences in open world with all the benefits and rewards mentioned in the diary. So they're offsetting the fact that there's only one raid with the raid-like open world bosses that don't have loot locks. So let's see what this new raid is. If it's like, you know, a raid that we're typically used to, that we're going to breeze through an elite day one and get super bored with, and we're farming just for rewards. Or if it's going to be more of like a paradox style where it's actually legitimately hard. We'll see. I don't know which developer is doing the raid right now. That's going to completely kind of dictate what we kind of expect. If it's Sharon doing it, if it's Quotoxic doing it, or Milbarge, we can kind of get a good gauge on what the difficulty is going to be and how much effort they put into it based on which developer is doing it. So once we get closer to that, we can kind of find out, which obviously I'll let you know as well. But here's hoping for Sharon that's doing it. Obviously he was mentioned here, so well, let's just hope that he's not just doing the open world bosses and he's actually doing the raid. That'd be some hope. And then hopefully, well, I mean, Milbarge is fine. Quotoxic, I mean, he did Clock Tower Elite. Clock Tower Elite's fine, but I mean, he's kind of fuzzy on the feedback sometimes. So I mean, if they put a lot of effort into the raid, and at least if the elite is like worth it, I don't mind doing one raid. That doesn't bother me. But if it's like, say, if it's like a Fire and Brimstone, where it's like you put a blindfold on and you run it, and in like 10 minutes you get loot, that's what I don't want. I mean, I don't want a Fire and Brimstone for 4 months, because that'd be honestly ridiculous, because that would be... So that's when Meps uses the phrase fantastic, it worries me, because I'm sure they think Fire and Brimstone is fantastic, where it's like one of the biggest like brain dead walkthrough raids. Like, I haven't even done an elite guide on Fire and Brimstone because I honestly don't see the point. It's like nearly impossible to fail. It's like super straightforward. I mean, they even got cheesy NPC damage from the turrets. So it's like, I don't know how you can screw up Fire and Brimstone Elite. It's like, there's no tips or tricks or guides needed. It's just like, it's there. I mean, you run it, 10 minutes later, you got loot. So I'm hoping for the latter, because Clock Tower Elite was promising. Now it's like super not promising, just with how much they've tuned it. But at the same time, Clock Tower Elite, even when it came out, was like a 20-minute raid. So we can't have one 20-minute raid for like 4 months. It's got to have some kind of level to it. You know, like similar to like, you know, Dark Star War Factor or something like that, where there's multiple mini bosses in it. It's going to take like, you know, first day, it's going to take like 45 minutes to a few hours. And then once it really gets figured out, it's still going to be half an hour. So I guess we'll see. So this is just kind of the quick preview into the Wonderverse. And as they release more updates, I'll let you guys know. Subscribe for more. Take care, guys. See you in the next video.